Welcome to the Art Array. I am your host, Nathan Crockett, author of My Soul Burned, aka the greatest story that has ever been written, according to my mom. Today I have a very special guest. He not only writes fictional stories, but he also writes about tax law. His name is Justin Bello. Let's go and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I'm an author. Professionally, I write about taxation, tax law, but for fun and on the side, I write fiction novels, mostly science fiction and fantasy. Um, I do branch out into a little bit of other fiction, but mostly science fiction and fantasy. And then professionally, I write about taxation, tax law, and things like that. But I mean, as you can kind of understand, like tax law isn't super riveting, and so I do like to branch out into fiction and write about that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I do.
And then with your fiction and sci-fi stories, are you traditionally published or did you go with self-publishing?
So my fiction novels, I did self-publishing, just to kind of get it out there and to just kind of build my library. It seemed to be easier to go with self-publishing for my career. I go through the traditional publishing. So like I submit work to different publishers, have them review it, and then we go through that whole process. But for my fiction, I do self-publishing,
Okay.
mostly through Amazon
Mhm.
Kindle Direct Publishing.
Yeah, that definitely does seem to be the way most people go. Like I don't really see a whole lot of benefit in the traditional publishing anymore. So what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions with the law? So whether it's tax law or really any other law, if you want to
Okay.
branch out.
Okay. If I want to branch out, so Uh, with tax law, I think the one of the biggest misconceptions is that taxes are just for the government to raise money, raise revenue.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of different policy that goes into it as well. So they use it to incentivize certain behaviors, or to promote or boost up different industries. One thing that is more interesting. So before I was in tax law, I did a lot of I did some criminal law work. I was actually a public defender for a little bit,
Oh,
um,
okay.
which which was an adventure.
Mm.
But one law there that everybody seems to get wrong is just the notion of self-defense. It has to be um, like an immediate danger. It's not like you can't hear somebody like a rumor that somebody is plotting to murder you and then you go and murder them before they murder you. Like that's not considered self-defense. So preemptive strikes, I guess, is what you would call it. That's not considered self-defense. None of my clients, I wouldn't say none of my clients. There were a few, shall we say, repeat offenders that understood it, but but yeah. So that was something that most people didn't understand was what self-defense actually was.
And then what do you think is the most interesting law?
In property law, there's this concept called adverse possession,
Okay.
where basically, if somebody owns some property but they don't do anything with it, and then you move in and live on it for like a certain amount of time, depending on what state you live in, if you live there and you improve the property and things like that, even though you've not never like purchased it or like registered that it's your property. So,
Oh.
but I mean that 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 comes from like a long time ago when people were settling like settling on different
Mm.
lands. Um, Nowadays it's more like property disputes. So like say 20 years ago, we built a fence and we didn't realize it was 1 foot over on our neighbor's yard.
Yeah.
And now it's 20 years later and technically it's on our neighbor's yard, but we don't really want to tear down the fence and build it, like rebuild it one
Mm.
foot this way. So then you would just register under this adverse possession law and say, well, it's been like this for 20 plus years now, so we're just going to say that this is part of my property now.
Okay,
So
that one
that
makes more sense. That
yeah.
that seems a lot
So
more reasonable.
yeah. So that's kind of how it's used nowadays, but back in the day, like people would own huge pieces of land.
Mm.
um we're talking like robber baron era
Mm.
where
Okay.
where people would own huge parcels of land, and like they would never go to it or see it or whatever. And so somebody would move on to it, they'd like build a house, build a fence, improve the property, and then like 15, 20 years later, the robber baron would show up and say, hey, this is my property, you got to get out. And so then they would file to actually own that property.
Okay,
So
that makes a bit more sense. Because, like in the beginning, I thought you were talking about like if someone had a house that they just weren't using, and then someone went in there, like the squatters' law thing. But that's what you just described now. That's totally different, and that does make sense. Do you ever watch those videos about like strange laws?
yeah,
Like my
we're
favorite one that
like,
I've come across is I can't remember what state it is, but apparently there's a state where you're not allowed to throw missiles. And I'm just like, who's gonna throw a missile? They're like 1,000 pounds.
right, yeah. Or like some of those old laws that like at a dance there has to be light visible between the people that are dancing or something like that. Or like just super old laws that
Yeah.
don't really apply anymore kind of thing.
So, other than your job and your writing, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, let's see. I spend a lot of a lot of time with my family. I have three boys,
Oh,
and
nice.
they're younger, so they are a little rowdy. So I spend a good chunk of my time with my boys, wrangling them or or just kind of wrestling around and things like that. On the weekends, and then on Wednesdays. That's really fun. I do that mostly just it's fun, but I do that to kind of keep in shape. And then I am imagining a day when my boys are old enough to overpower me. So I'm kind of preparing for that.
You may be stronger, but I am smarter. I know
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
techniques.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then once they start doing jujitsu, then you'll be in trouble.
Uh, yeah, probably. My oldest son, he's 5, but he's really big and strong for a 5-year-old. It's kind of funny. So he's in kindergarten right now, and you'll watch him next to all of his classmates, and he's like 2 times bigger than all the other kids. And I'm like, this kid's gonna be a monster when he gets older. I don't know if I'm gonna survive if he ever wants to if he ever wants to take me out when he gets to be a teenager. But
Oh,
I don't know.
geez.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, it seems like you're establishing a good foundation with him now, so hopefully he just won't even want to.
Yeah,
That would be
hopefully.
the ideal situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So, do you have any secrets to offer in terms of writing or marketing or anything related to that?
Well, let's see. So, writing, the thing that is hard for me is to like get into a writing project and then make sure that I finish all the way through before I find another project that is really exciting.
Yeah.
Um, so, for example, I have a book that's coming out on December 1st. But I was working on that book, and then I got an idea for another book, and so I had to make sure that I finished this book before I went on to this other idea that I thought was really interesting. And so for me, the way to do that is to basically make sure I put my ideas down in writing somewhere, so that I
Mhm.
know I'm not going to forget it. And then I can go back and finish what I've been working on before, so I can get it out of my head,
Yeah.
and then it's not like swirling around in there and interfering with what I'm working on right now. I can get to it later. Other thing with writing, outlining is really big for me.
Me too.
Because yeah, so I always have to have like a skeleton, I guess,
Mhm.
before like a structure before I can write my piece out. A lot of other authors that I've talked to, they're like, oh, I start and I go on the journey, and then whenever I finish is whenever I finish, and I don't know where it's going to end up, and stuff like that. But I don't know. I can't do that.
Yeah. Those people are psychos. Let's just be real. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Yeah,
So
I mean, obviously, everyone could do it their own way. I think one of the misconceptions is like a lot of people feel that if you have an outline, they're like, well, then you can't explore and everything. It's like, well, just because you have an outline, that doesn't mean you can't go off roading. Like,
yeah, yeah.
so because there are times where things go where I'll add something in that wasn't originally in the outline. But I do like that because I also think it's really great when you want to set something up. Because if you know the story's going to get here, then when you're writing back here and you're detailing back here, you could kind of keep that in mind that eventually it's going to lead to this. So all the foreshadowing and build up and character development can lead to that. Whereas
Mhm.
if you start here and then go there and then you have to go back and be like, well, maybe I should like have a little bit of foreshadowing. Like I feel it's more complicated that way.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, so I have like a three book set that I'm writing. The first one's coming out on December 1st,
Mhm.
but it's called The Calm Before the Storm, but it's Skylar's story. And then I have basically the same story, but it's from the perspective of one of the other characters. In my world, there's like three different nations that are at war with each other, and with one of so I've already written the one where it's from the perspective of this kid that is raised in like this steampunk dinosaur western country.
Okay.
And then the other one, he's a wizard that's a dragon rider, but they're at war with each other. And so I'm looking at the story from their two different perspectives, and a lot happens that's different because they're in two different locations, but I also need to mesh them in a way that makes sense that that's happening at the same time. If I don't outline, then I can't mesh the stories up together.
And then what is your overall goal as a writer?
I guess it depends on what aspect we're talking about. So like for my professional career, it's basically just to make a living so I can support my family, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I write about tax law. With my side stuff, that's more like an outlet for me to pursue more creative avenues. I get like stories and plot lines and characters and things like that. It just kind of swirling around in my head, and it feels good when I put it on
Mhm.
paper and um, when I can make something or create something that I can be proud of. And if other people read it and enjoy it, I mean that just makes it even better.
And then what is your biggest fear as a writer?
Let's see. There's a lot. How much time do we have? Not being able to create all the things that I want to. So right now I only have three books, like three fiction books published,
Mhm.
but I have ideas for a lot of other stories. Uh,
Okay.
and I guess my biggest fear is that I would never get to make those stories because life would get in the way. I don't know that I would never get to express those things and put them down on paper and create them. I guess that's really the reason that I decided to start self-publishing
Mhm.
on the side. I don't think anybody's going to read an article about employment tax and think, "Oh, this guy was super creative," right? It's more like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do to save myself some money?
Mhm.
Whereas I guess my biggest fear is that I won't be able to show my full range of creativity.
It's kind of funny because this other girl I spoke to before, and I don't have her on the show because this was like a long time ago. I just kind of randomly met her, but it was a similar thing. She actually said her greatest fear was that she'd be in the middle of writing something and then she'd die. Like it's
Yeah.
so weird.
I was going to say something like that, but I thought it might be a little morbid that I would die before I get all my stuff out. Yeah.
Part of the reason why I brought that story up because I felt like you wanted to say that. Like as you're struggling
Uh-huh.
with your words, I was like, that's what he wants to say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there are other famous authors that have died in the middle of works. So like the guy that wrote Wheel of Time, he ended up dying before his series was done.
Mm.
Um, Charles Dickens died before one of his story was done, and his son had to finish it for him. And but like we don't know how he was going to finish it. We're like,
Yeah.
I'm sure his son had a pretty good idea, but we don't exactly know how he's going to finish it. And so, yeah, I guess that's it. I'll die before I get all of my stuff out there.
Is there anything else that you just really wanted to tell people about, or is there anything that you kind of wanted to talk about that I didn't get to, or did you have any questions for me?
We were asking about secrets of
Mhm.
the industry. Depending on how you go, if you go through a traditional publisher, I would say it's really just a numbers game. You send out your stuff to as many people or as many publishers as you can find, and just know that about 90% of them are not going to publish your work. And it's not necessarily because your stuff isn't good, it's just that it's not what they're looking for. So I have an article for tax law that was on a wealth tax, and I sent it to 500 different publishers. Only one of them picked it up. It was because that was exactly what they were looking for, right? The other ones were looking for, I don't well, I don't know what they were looking for because some of them didn't even respond, right? So, well, most of them didn't even respond, but the one that did respond, they're like, "Hey, this is something that's really that we've been thinking about. This is something that we've been wanting to do an article about. Let's publish your article and and make this happen." With traditional publishing, I guess the secret or the thing that I didn't realize when I first started is that you literally have to do everything, right? So like
Mhm.
you have to run your social media page, you have to do your editing, or you have to find an editor yourself, like hire somebody off of Fiverr or like hire a freelancer from somewhere. Um, and you have to like cultivate that relationship with your readers and
Mhm.
make sure you have that audience. Like everything is on you when you do the traditional publishing, or not traditional, when you do the self-publishing route.
All right. Well, thank you again, and you have a good day.
All right, you too.
All right. Once again, I hope you're all enjoying these. I'm sorry they keep ending a little abruptly. I am going to work on that, but any other feedback you have, let me have it.